The real story is a powerful and historically grounded narrative about the transition from slavery to a new system of oppression in post-Civil War Atlanta, 1865 to 1870. It outlines a clear, tragic sequence. The narrative is expository, explaining the historical mechanisms. To adapt it into an engaging video story for tales of slavery, we need to humanize this history through a compelling protagonist, Huck, and structure it with classic narrative tension, emotional beats, and vivid scenes. After walking to Atlanta in search of his wife and son, a freedman named Huck finds not the family he longs for, but a city rebuilding itself on a new, insidious form of bondage, one that threatens to claim him and everything he holds dear. It's 1865. Huck, a man of few words but deep resilience, leaves the Fulton County plantation where he was enslaved. His only possession is a whittled oak bird, a promise token for his son Eli. His soul is fixed on Atlanta, where his wife Mariah and son were sold 3 years prior. The chapter follows his arduous journey. The dusty roads filled with other freed people, the mix of hope and fear, the kindness at a freedman's camp, and the menace of patrollers who resent their freedom. He arrives in a scarred, bustling Atlanta, his heart pounding with hope. He sees a schoolhouse being built by black men and hears a preacher speaking of dignity. For a moment the promise feels real. He begins his search, putting up a handwritten note on a church door seeking Mariah and Eli, last from Dalton. "I am here. Huck." As night falls, he finds shelter in a shanty town, clutching the wooden bird, whispering their names to the Atlanta stars. We meet Huck not as a symbol but as a man with a singular, relatable goal: find his family. The journey establishes his character quiet, determined, observant, and immerses the viewer in the raw, hopeful atmosphere of 1865. 1866. Huck finds work on a railroad crew, swinging a sledgehammer to rebuild the line to Marietta. He saves every cent, asking everyone he meets about Mariah and Eli. He learns to navigate Atlanta, the bustling Decatur Street, the wary glances, the coded language of survival. He witnesses the first chill of the black codes. A friend is fired for not having his paper on him. Another is forced into a brutal annual labor contract with a former overseer. Huck is careful, always carrying his work contract. He finds community in a small church gathering, where he shares his story and finds solace in song. He even gets a lead. A woman fitting Mariah's description was seen working as a laundress near 5 Points. Hope flares anew. But as he leaves the church meeting, he and the others are watched by a white sheriff and his deputy. The sheriff mutters about idle gatherings. The shadow falls. The tension builds as Huck gets closer to his goal while the world around him begins to close in. The viewer feels his rising hope and shares his dread as the systemic threats, black codes, surveillance, become personal. 1868. Huck's lead on Mariah goes cold. He takes a day off from the railroad to follow a new rumor to the Orborn Avenue market. It's a futile search. Exhausted and disheartened, he sits for a moment on a curb near the railroad yard to rest his feet. This is his mistake. A deputy sheriff, a man named Briggs with cold eyes, demands his papers. Huck's contract is for the railroad, but has not at the worksite. Briggs calls it vagrancy and loitering. Huck's protests are met with a baton to his ribs. Hess dragged through the streets, past faces he recognizes, faces etched with pity and fear. Hess thrown into the crowded, foul-smelling city jail with a dozen other black men, all arrested on similarly vague charges. The wooden bird is crushed under a jailer's boot. Huck's world collapses into fear and confusion. The arrest is the pivotal turning point. The injustice is visceral and immediate. The destruction of the bird symbolizes the crushing of his promise. The viewer is trapped with Huck, in the claustrophobic horror of the jail, sharing his desperation. Huck is hauled before a judge in a chaotic courtroom. The charge is read. A fine of $15, an impossible sum. The judge offers a mercy, sign a 1-year labor contract with Mr. Jepson, a brick factory owner, and the fine is waived. Huck, knowing the rumors of Jepson's brutality, refuses, begging for time to pay. His plea is ignored. 30 days in the county stockade, then remand to the state for leasing, the judge declares, gavel crashing. In the stockade, Huck meets Isaiah, an older, wiser man who explains the system. They ain't fines, son. They're prices, the price of our freedom, and we can't afford it. Isaiah describes the convict leasing camps, the chains, the work, the dying. Huck's spirit hardens. He must survive. He must get out. For Mariah, for Eli. The courtroom scene exposes the cruel transactional farce of justice. Isaiah's explanation gives the viewer and Huck the horrifying big picture. The chapter shifts from confusion to grim understanding, setting the stage for the ordeal to come. Chained at the ankle to a line of 20 other men, Huck is marched out of Atlanta. They are a convict gang, leased to the Georgia and Western Railroad Company. The camp is a hellscape of mud, makeshift tents, and armed guards. The work is crushing lifting iron rails, hammering spikes from dawn until dark. Food is slop. The whip cracks for the slightest lag. Huck sees men break, get sick, and disappear. He holds on to the names of his family like a prayer. He learns to find small moments of humanity, sharing a stolen turnip, a whispered song at night. He witnesses a guard kill a man for talking back. The body is carried away without ceremony. Huck understands, here a man is not a man. He is labor, bought and paid for by the state. His body is not his own. But in his heart, a defiant plan begins to form. Not escape, that is suicide, but survival and bearing witness. This is the brutal core of the story. The visceral descriptions of the labor camp make history tangible. Huck's internal struggle between despair and a hardening will to survive drives the emotional narrative forward. A year passes. Huck, now hardened and scarred, is part of a chain gang paving a street back in Atlanta itself, a cruel irony. As they work under guard near 5 Points, he scans the faces of black spectators, and then he sees her, Mariah. Her eyes wide with shock and recognition, her hand flying to her mouth. A young boy, Eli, holds her skirts. A guard barks, eyes down. Huck looks down, his heart threatening to burst. When he risks another glance, she is gone. But that night, as the chain gang is housed in a temporary stockade, a young boy slips through the fence. It's Eli. He doesn't say a word, just pushes a small, newly whittled oak bird into Huck's chained hands, then vanishes. Clutching the token, Huck weeps silently. He is not forgotten. The promise lives. The chapter closes years later, in 1875. Huck, miraculously alive and free after his lease ended, sits with Mariah and Eli in their modest home near Sweet Auburn. He is a quiet man, haunted but present. He works his own small plot. He teaches Eli to read in secret. The fear of the sheriff's knock never fully leaves. The system of leasing still thrives, picking others off the street. But in his hand he holds 2 wooden birds, the old crushed one and the new. Freedom is fragile, conditional, and unjust, but the thread of family, of love, of memory is unbroken. They are building, on the most fragile foundation of all, a future. The emotional payoff, the reunion of glances, the powerful symbol of the new wooden bird, provides a cathartic, if bittersweet, resolution. The ending doesn't shy away from the lasting trauma, but affirms resilience and the enduring power of human connection against a system designed to destroy it. This was the story of Huck's promise, a story of freedom betrayed and a spirit that refused to be broken. If you are moved by this journey through the hidden mechanisms of history, please share this video to keep these stories alive, and subscribe to Tales of Slavery for more deeply human stories from the shadows of our past. We remember so we can understand.